to our final press conference of the 2018 season. This week, Akron plays at South Carolina on Saturday, December 1st. Kickoff is at noon. Coach, would you like to start with an opening statement?
Yes. Gosh, ending of a season like this, really different. Having a big game like this at the end of the season, it's been a tough season. Things our close game. We have not won a lot of ball games at the end of the games, and Ohio was a game that we just got behind early with an interception and a punt off our 1 yard line, and pretty much matched them for points the rest of the game, but we couldn't slow them down enough to catch up, and lost another tough football game. I sure like the way our players fought all the way to the end, but they're too good of a football team to spot them, the 21 points that we spotted them, and then come back and have a chance to win that game against Ohio. But our players come back, and now you got to come back for the final game against South Carolina. And in looking at our season and the disappointment, I think, in the way some of our games have played out, in trying to reach your goals and your expectations, this is just a good game to play. I think in this situation we didn't become bowl eligible, and our players don't have a chance to play in postseason play. To have a game this late against a team of this quality and this caliber, quite often you get to a bowl game and you play teams like this in the bowl games. Then you play at a venue where you're going to have this kind of attendance and the whole atmosphere, players' chance to make the lasting impressions and finish the season. Obviously, we're heavy underdogs, but that's what happens when you play these type of games, when people pay you to come play at their place. But I think under the circumstance, our players are excited about the opportunity, and we're looking forward to it. It's a huge obstacle, but it's a great opportunity, and a way to, one, finish strong as our players now prepare, and we prepare for a game that really prepares us as much for next season as it does for the end of this one.
How do you keep them motivated this week, or do they even need to be motivated this week?
You take seniors. Here's a chance that many of those guys say, I wonder if I could play on Sunday. And I was, well, if you are, those NFL scouts are going to watch this film first. They may watch Northwestern. They're going to watch this film first because of the number of NFL quality players in their football team. So if you want a chance to shine and you're a senior, it's your last chance, and to put a last impression, this is the time to do it. If you're on our football team, and so many of our players, if you grew up in Ohio, you wanted to play for the Buckeyes. If you grew up in the South, you wanted to play the SEC. If it was in Florida, it was Miami, Florida, Florida State. Maybe you didn't get that opportunity. Maybe they didn't think you were good enough. Well, here's your chance to show them that you can play with a team in the SEC that's bowl eligible and has played a lot of good football teams. And so there's plenty to be. If you got pride and you want a challenge, and you respond to those challenges, it's motivating, very motivating for us. I think if you're playing just another team and you're not in a situation to go to a bowl, I think then you're fighting. Let's keep on playing hard. But this is an awful big one. Now, does that mean we can match up with them at every position? No, I don't think it does. But does it mean we can play our best football and be inspired? I don't think without a doubt. Our players have practiced this week, knowing that they've got a chance to go out there and play a great team. I think when Larry scheduled this game, he talked to the players about their missed opportunity to play in a big venue against Nebraska, and this would be an opportunity to come out there and be there for us. So, I think from that standpoint, the players will be motivated to play their very best. There'll be some mismatches out there. That's the one thing we've got to be aware of, is that certain positions, just by the nature of the two teams, there'll be a few mismatches out there.
As you take a look at the tape, is there some advantages we have as far as our wide receivers matching up with their defensive backs?
I don't think you can say there's some advantages. There's some areas that we feel better about attacking than others, that, well, this is our better chance. Are we, by a preponderance of 51%, is it better for us than them? I don't know that there are many that we have as many of those, but if we did, we're going to identify those. And there are some areas that we think we may have this individual situation may happen, or they tend to do this. Now the question is, can you execute it? You know, they've got a couple of big-time players on defense. Number 3 especially, I go by numbers, not names as much. Their quarterback is sharp. He's a coach's son who plays very, very well. They've got a bona fide NFL receiver. They've just got a lot of very good football players. But there are areas say, okay, if we're going to beat this team, we better focus on these 2 areas. Yeah, we do have that we began to hone down and say we better take advantage of that. And you do have 11 games to watch. You don't want to spend a lot of time watching all 11, but as you go through it, you're able to see 11 different game plans, 11 different coaches who sat and watched this team for a week, and you see what they thought they could do against this team, and you try to create some patterns there in the way you're trying to defend against them and then play against them with obviously the possibility of some new wrinkles being added.
We talked about this yesterday with the offensive line in that second half against Ohio, really giving Cato time to throw. Is that one of the pluses coming out of Ohio?
Yeah, I think it is. One of the biggest pluses is that with Cato healthy and playing and running and throwing, it does allow us to be a really a better football team. I mean, we threw for about 360. They ran for 380. I mean, we didn't like them running for 380. They didn't like us throwing for 360. But if you take away an interception that kept them a touchdown from about the 16-yard line in, and a punt off your 1-yard line that they turned for a touchdown, we matched them basically point for point the entire game until the last seconds. They scored on the last play of the game to make it 21. It was basically that difference right there. And so it did because of when he was out, we just didn't have any offense at all hardly without him in there. But with him back in there, and to our surprise a little bit, his ability to run the football more than we thought he could run the football. I think once he put his foot in the ground and it worked, he felt better and we felt better. But that was encouraging. And but we got to stop the run a little better. We've had a hard time stopping the run at some of these better teams. And you know, Bell's been hurt quite a bit, and some of the depth we've had there has hurt us. But we need to be better at stopping the run, I think, to force these teams into some passing situations.
Looking back at the season, is that injury to Cato probably been the biggest disappointment?
You know, I not just that. I mean, when you set your goals so high, we're to the point now where if we don't go bowling and we don't do that kind of stuff, as far as it's just we're not reading our expectations. You know, now if you coach long enough and if you coach at a place long enough, there's going to be a year where things don't work out, and you got to work through it, and you got to build and you got to grow from it, and see where you can improve for the next year. And I think this year has been the disappointment is that we've gotten to we have not won the close call ball games. When you look at it, turnover margin has probably been the biggest thing. Anytime you lose as opposed to win, and you're in a lot of tight ball games, when we went to bowls 2 years in a row, we're right number 1 or number 2 in the conference in turnover margin. This year we were at the bottom. As you analyze that, late in the games when we had most of our turnovers came fourth quarter, when you're trying to get back in the game or trying to keep up with the game, and when mistakes were made in critical situations. But again, I think the biggest thing was that we have got expectation levels here to the point now where it's like finish the climb. We didn't finish. There's only one more climb to go, and that one we didn't get to. You know, but what we've got to do is recognize that when you've got your program where it is, when you have when you stumble, you've got to look and see what you've got done and get that correct. Some of it has to be done in the off season, and get yourself ready for the next year. And I think that's what happens when you get to a program where we are now. And and you got to make sure to learn from it. You know, I'm disappointed, and it comes back. I think I have to take responsibility because if there's players that are insufficient at certain positions, then I'm in charge of recruiting. If there's schemes that I'm in charge of all those things. So as I look at it, you know, it's not the season we wanted, but and again, the longer you're in this business, there's going to be a time where you got to get knocked down and get back up, and this is one where we got knocked down and got to get back up.
Your inability to develop a consistent running game this season, in your mind, how much did that affect?
That's the core of our offensive problem. You got it, George. I think in that one we really needed to. We lost, you know, and again, you lose people. I mean, Brandon Council probably our best lineman. We lost him. I think he played an Iowa State game, and that was it, maybe. With a broken hand, they wouldn't let him play anymore once they had to operate on that and some other things. And we were just we were so shallow there. That was huge. And then when Cato got hurt, and he's so much part of our running game, we had none for about 2.5 games. We had no running game when we were still able to put, I think, 26 points on the board against Northern Illinois, which is a great defense, with our pass and mixing it up together. But that, to me, that is the one thing we've got to continue to take the next step forward, and that is to make sure. Now, we have some great young receivers. The one thing we did, we signed about 5 freshman linemen last year, and they are really good linemen that are going to come along really nicely to give us that depth. But that's if you looked at one area that I wanted to improve more than we did, that would be it.
Are you feeling any pressure about anything related to your job right now?
You know, again, I don't let those kind of things. I mean, in the season, you evaluate and say, boy, you got to, the object is to win football games. And no matter where you are, you want to win football games. But right now, you got South Carolina on your mind. We've had, our seniors came to this year with 3 of the best years any class has ever had as a Division I football team here. With 2 bowl games that they've been to and a conference championship, winning 5 of 6 at home, beating a Big Ten team. So many of the things they've accomplished, and yet when you don't step forward the next year, I think you're always being evaluated in that regard. So I think that that pressure is as much on myself as from anybody else. Is that we better find the reasons and get them fixed next year. That's for sure. Because your goals get higher and higher, and the expectation levels get higher and higher. They weren't very high 7 years ago. We've got them fairly high right now.
Talking about your senior class, you had 2 guys, Michael Taylor Bennett and Brian Rankin, catch touchdown passes. Those 2 guys have been in the program a long time. How's that make you feel?
I love to see seniors have a happy ending and have good finishes. Michael Traylor Bennett started some as a freshman. As a true freshman, caught a touchdown pass against Penn State in the very first time we went over to Penn State in a game as a true freshman. He had to take 2 injured years and come back a 6th year. A lot of his mobility never came back, but he always fought through it. Nice to see him make a big play like that. Brian Rinka unselfishly moved from defense to offense as we gained more depth on the defensive front. And we didn't have that depth at the tight end H position came over. And as he slowly got more playing time, which he has now, awful nice to see him catch that pass for a touchdown. And that will be one that he carries with him, because, again, those are the kind of memories you take with you. And I think the older I get, the more I appreciate memories players can take with them the rest of their life. And they most of the time don't remember the bad; they remember the good, and that's an awful good feeling.
Are all the freshmen being able to play against South Carolina? There's some that have used up those 4 games.
Yeah, I think we've got it all down. Some have used up their 4. We won't play them anymore. Others have not, and if the opportunity arises, we will play them. And like today in practice, we stayed longer and scrimmaged just our non-starters today, because the one thing we can do today and tomorrow is this is very much like a bowl situation, and that we've got 5 extra days of practice. Whether we played just a kickoff against Nebraska, we prepared for that game the entire week. And as this one becomes really a 13th game, a week of preparation for a football game, we're able to treat half of our practice like bowl practice, that you're using those practices to get your young guys ready. So when it came to scrimmaging today, we took all the starters off and all the guys that are playing in the rotation and let the other guys get some opportunity to show us what they can do.
How well do you know Will Muschamp?
Well, I know him pretty well. We haven't been talked a lot in the last few years, but again, when I was the head coach at Auburn, he was a defensive back, a safety at Georgia. At least 2, maybe 3 years. I know 2. And he was a captain. He was I want to say walk-on that became a scholarship captain of their team. I always admired the way he played when we played him, and when he graduated, I hired him as a graduate assistant. So he worked for me for a couple of years. So I've known him for a long time. And then after that, I followed him. I continued to go. I went into broadcasting. He stayed in coaching. And then I came back into coaching, and I've always liked to see the guys that worked for me when they were young and see them move along. So again, he's always been I've known him all of his coaching career. Very, very, very competitive. The guys that I had as graduate assistants that you see them make it as coaches, they're very competitive. They love to win. They love to win football games, and one of the most important factors. But, you know, he's the same guy, it looks like to me, over the years since when I first saw him. It's funny, he was the walk-on safety that became their team leader at Georgia. And then when he graduated, they had another walk-on that took his position over that I watched play against us for a couple years named Kirby Smart. And he was the same, he was smaller than Will, I think, that he now is the head coach at Georgia. And watch those guys. And so it's kind of interesting to see those guys move on in their career after watching them play against us or for us.